Welcome to the Subplot with Jesse Shapiro, where I sit down with people who aren't just talking, but actually making their dreams a reality in show business. My guest today thought about quitting her lifelong dream of becoming an actress and a comedian when she turned 30 and was still working full-time as a bartender. She called her mom and said, "Mom, I think I should just get a regular job." And her mom said, "You can't give up. This is what you're supposed to do." She didn't give up. She went on to become a writer and roundtable regular on the hit show Chelsea Lately. She is a New York Times best-selling author, and she currently stars on the hit Netflix show Insatiable. This is The Subplot with my guest, Sarah Colonna.
See, I never thought I'd get the chance to do some things I've already done. So in some ways I've already...
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Subplot with Jesse Shapiro. My guest today is Sarah Colonna, who is an incredible comedian, actress, New York Times bestselling author. She is fantastic. I have had quite a cool week. I went to the Emmys last week, which was my first time ever going to the Emmys. For those of you that don't know, I work for the Late Late Show with James Corden. I do audience warm-up for the show. I am the fluffer. I go out before the show and get the audience all riled up and ready to party. And I think for the last decade or so, all the late night shows have had a thing where they invite their full staffs to the Emmys. And so we get the nosebleed seats up at the very top of the Microsoft Theater downtown at LA Live. And each late night show that's nominated has a section up there. And so it was a really great time. It was a lot of fun to be able to see it firsthand. The Microsoft Theater is a big cavernous type theater, but I still felt like I was there and having a good time. And it was just cool to celebrate with a bunch of other folks who are really excited and pumped to be there. Going into the Emmys, I had to get a tux, which, by the way, if you need to get a cheap tux very quickly on the fly at the very last minute, the Garment District downtown is the place to do it. I did it in literally 15 minutes. You go in there, they look at you, they give you a suit, and they send you down the street to go get it tailored for another $5. I think the whole thing cost me $140 total. So keep that in mind for when you have a last-minute wedding or the Emmys that you have to buy a tux for. It's just as cheap as renting it. It was fantastic. Anyway, back to the Emmys. We had a nice pre-party. The CBS was nice enough to throw kind of a party for us. For the whole show before the Emmys, which had an open bar, so everyone got a little toasty. And then we walked in, which was really funny. I have kind of an Instagram story on which we don't go in on the red carpet. There's like a bluish, greenish carpet off to the side where people that aren't actually nominated and aren't stars walk in, but you're right next to the red carpet, so you can kind of see through the shrubs and the bushes what's going on over there, and you kind of just walk right next to them, parallel, but on the other side. If you want to check it out on Instagram, I'll upload the video. It's Jesse Shapiro on Instagram. I saw a really cool documentary on Netflix about Quincy Jones. It was incredible just to see the 7 decades of work this guy has done and how much stuff that I didn't even know he had a hand in and what he did. He was a musical arranger for Frank Sinatra and Count Basie, which is some of my favorite big band music. When I was a child, I used to want to be a big band leader. I didn't really want to know how to do anything musical, but I just wanted to be the guy in front of the band who waved his arms really enthusiastically. So that's pretty much what I do now, doing warm-up. Now that I think about it. What else? He discovered Oprah. Oprah was on TV in Chicago, and he discovered her and put her in The Color Purple. Michael Jackson, Bad, Thriller, Quincy Jones. A lot of 50, like there was some music from the 60s too, not 50s, sorry. I mean, he did stuff in the 50s, but the song I'm particularly thinking about is It's My Party. Sorry, lost it. It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To is a Quincy Jones song. It's my party and I'll cry. Okay, I'll stop. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's just had his hand in so many different things. And I have to admit, I kind of wanted him. There was a couple of articles that came out a couple months ago about where Quincy was talking about how Marlon Brando had gay sex with a bunch of people. And so I kind of wanted the documentary to be slightly more scandalous and just let Quincy go off and talk about whatever he wanted to and divulge some some old school Hollywood inside secrets. I was hoping that might be there, but the documentary was directed by his daughter, so she's obviously looking out for him as she should. So it wasn't too risque, but just seeing the guy's mindset, his work ethic, and all the barriers that he broke was super incredible. I highly recommend watching it. And so after I watched the documentary, I was like, I got to listen to all Quincy Jones music. And another part I didn't know is that the whole theme song to Austin Powers, the do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do, that is a Quincy Jones song. And I guess he was in the movie, but I didn't realize it when I saw it. So I went to go listen to a lot of Quincy music on Spotify, and it said that he had a show in town. And so I looked it up, and at the Microsoft Theater last night, I went and saw the 85th anniversary of Quincy. It was his 85th birthday in March, and I think it's going to be aired on BET, but it was an incredible show. It was a who's who of the best vocalists in the world. Stevie Wonder was there. Jennifer Hudson was there. Fantasia was there. It was out of control. So when this comes out on BET, I highly recommend you check it out. Maybe you just have to see it live. I don't know. Maybe it won't translate through on BET. Charlie Wilson, who's my favorite. It was so cool to see everyone there. Oprah was there. So it was a who's who, and it was fun to sit in the audience and watch that for a couple of hours. Anyway, that's been my week. We got a great show for you today. Sarah Colonna, old friend. I've known her for 13 years. She's someone that I really wanted to talk to because she wasn't able to quit her job bartending until I think she was 34, 35 and got a full-time writing job on Chelsea Lately. She tried to quit her job, or she tried to keep her weekend bartending gigs, and her boss finally said, look, you've got a full-time job. You have to quit. You have to quit this. You've got it. You've made it. Go do it. And so she's killing it now, and it's so great to just hear her story, to hear about all the ups and downs. Every time she thought she had something that would lead to something else, and then it didn't necessarily lead to anything. And I think what her story is really a testament to if you really want to be in this business, you got to be in it for during the good times and the bad times. A lot of it is just about sticking around and being persistent and really wanting it. So without further ado, here is the Subplot with my guest, Sarah Colonna. Hi, everyone. What is up? Thank you so much for tuning in. I am here today with my old school friend, awesome comedian, actress, etc., Sarah Colonna.
Hello. Hi.
I'm drinking a beer on the podcast.
First thing I offered. Yeah.
I know, it was awesome. I was like, just like old times, just like the comedians of Chelsea Lately.
Exactly, and it's hot out.
Or the Improv, or etc. I mean, pretty much every time we've hung out.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really excited to have Sarah on the show today because Sarah is someone who I met like when I was fairly early off in the business, and we met at the Improv originally, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I was booking at that point, and I thought she was hilarious, and like she like hustled. She hustled for a long time, and is like been kicking ass for the last however many years, or been kicking ass for a long time. But it was like. It
took a long time.
it was a result of a lot of hard work and hustling. So I'm super glad to have her on the show. And I guess the first question I have for you is like, you grew up in Arkansas. You were born in Germany, right?
Yeah.
Oh shit! You know what? I forgot I have notes.
Do you have notes? I was gonna say born in Germany. Someone was on my IMDb page.
I did, yeah. So
I was born there. My dad was in the Air Force, so I don't really remember. We were there I think we moved after 2 years, so I was 2 years old, so I don't remember anything about it.
Got it. So Germany, nothing.
Not a part.
No
Yeah,
good
no questions. No good stories for you.
No good. All right. No Oktoberfest when you were 2 years old.
No, not that I know
of. So then you grew up in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And like being so far away from kind of the entertainment community in Arkansas, when did you first get an inkling like, oh, that's a profession that you can get paid for? Because I know your dad was out here too.
Yeah,
right?
my dad was out here since I was probably 8, I think. So my parents split up when I was 5, and then we were in Texas at the time. He came out here eventually because he worked for the Orange County Register, so he was a journalist. And so I would come out every summer. So I came out. But I was in Orange County, and it wasn't on my own. But we would come up to Walk of Fame and do all that stuff that I was always interested in. But I don't really have a good moment of oh, that's what I want to do. I just always said I wanted to. Like
Really?
since
So
I
from a
was
young
little.
age, you knew?
Yeah, like when I was little, I would like rehearse like my mom watched soap operas, and I would like act out soap operas like by myself. All my children was the one that she really enjoyed, and like I would like I just enjoyed acting and like comedy, so I just always wanted to do it. I don't have like a moment of like, oh, that's what I want to do. It's
Right.
just, and then in high school we didn't have the theater department because I went to like such a small school.
Right.
And then in college, I majored in theater.
So there was no theater department in high school, and so were you doing anything at that time to kind of beyond just like having fun at home? You were just
No, I was on Pom Pom Squad. Like, that was all. That was all. The only option I had.
I'm gonna find a picture of you on Pom Pom Squad.
Oh God, I
insert
have
it
some.
here.
They're pretty bad, so please do. Giant hair.
And then so you get to college and you immediately know, okay, drama. Is it acting at that point?
Yeah, I majored in theater, but I wanted to write. I wanted to do stand up. We didn't even have like a place to. It wasn't like here where there's like open mics and coffee shops and stuff that you can do. I think there's a couple coffee shops now maybe around the University of Arkansas that have like open mic nights, but they didn't then. I mean, this was in 1992. And so they had like nothing for me to, I don't know, so I would write like stand up kind of in my head, and I would like write it out, but I didn't have anywhere to do it.
And so like what was your first exposure? Because to me I find it really interesting that you automatically knew that you wanted to act and do stand up. Usually it's like someone wants to do stand up and then they're like, oh, acting would be cool, or they want to do acting and they're like, hey, stand up might be a good way to help with that. Like the fact that you were on board for both of them from the beginning, I find that really interesting. Where were you first exposed to stand up as well? Like was that just on TV?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, on TV, and like my great uncle was like he was a comedian and he traveled with Bob Hope. So
Okay, awesome.
he was like this old school. He had his own show for a minute. He was more of like a comedic actor, but he also hosted some. So I think he hosted his name was Jerry Colonna, and I think it was like the Jerry Colonna show, and it was. But he would go on like the USO tours and stuff with Bob Hope. So I think. Something about that interested me too. Like I knew that about him, and I would watch his old movies, even though I never met him.
Okay, so you hadn't met him.
He was still out here, and then by the time I moved out here, he was dead.
Got it.
So my sister met him when we were really little, but I never met him. So maybe that part of like, I was just interested, as to like, oh, he was in California, and he was an actor, and he was funny, and
you're like that. It became kind of a possibility in your head that could. That's a job.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, my mom was like, "Oh, just move out to LA and then talk to Bob Hope and he'll help you." I'm like, yeah, that's
great motherly
great advice. Yeah. Oh wait, that's all she thinks.
Just give Bob Hope a call. Just,
he'll probably hook you up. Yeah.
Nice. So then in college, when you were there certain comedians when you were young that you were like, oh my gosh, I want to be like this person or like that person? Or
Well, I have kind of a weird. I mean. I love Carol Burnett, and I know she's not a stand-up comedian by any means, but I was always like, my mom used to watch all her reruns, and so she would make me watch them, and I loved it. So I always had this sort of, and maybe that's why acting and comedy all together, even though it's again not stand-up, but like something about what she did made me, she was obviously sketch comedy, and I'm not good at that at all, but people like that, and then I always loved like Ellen's old stand-up, like she was such, like people should watch that if you don't even realize. I don't even think that people even remember anymore that she
was this.
Yeah,
I think she's doing a new stand-up special for Netflix.
Oh, awesome! That'd be good. She's so good. So I don't know, and then like I was in theater in college, so it was all like all that, so everything across the board, like Shakespeare and like. Whatever.
Having wanted to do that your whole life up until that point, and then getting to college and having the opportunity to do that, was it everything that you imagined? Did you enjoy the program?
I loved it. Yeah, I think it's the University of Arkansas, so it's not exactly like world renowned for acting or whatever. But to me, it was so. They have really really good instructors. They have a really good program. It's gotten even way better. I was just back in May, and like they've expanded it, and they have all these great things that they do now, but I think a lot of the good thing about it was a smaller program, obviously, so it's not like you're going to NYU and you never get to be on stage because you're competing with thousands of people, like you're competing with 50 people or something for a part instead or whatever, so you get opportunities. So to me it was really helpful because I got so many opportunities, and there's really nothing like learning more about acting than being on stage live.
Well, and I think that's like just true for everything, right? In terms
Yeah.
of like, if you want to be a good comedian, do a lot of stand up, get a
Yeah.
lot of stage time. If you want to be a good actor, get on stage a lot. If
Yeah.
you want to,
And I think that
you want to be a
helps.
filmmaker, make a lot of films.
Yeah.
like
I think that helps me even with stand up because I got comfortable on stage.
right.
Even though it was with other people, but you still get like comfortable.
So were there any like highlights from the college career there where you were like in a certain play and?
I mean, I won Best Actress at the end of our end of year. It was called Gala. Got a sort of little certificate as
Awesome.
Best Actress for Sexual Perversity in Chicago. So that was a big deal.
Is that up on the wall somewhere around
I mean,
here?
it should be. It should be. I'm gonna hang that up. It'll make John sad, but I'm gonna hang it up. Yeah.
Okay, so you go through the program, you really enjoy it. And at what point, so what do you do after school? Do you always know, hey, I'm moving to LA right after school?
I always knew I was going to move out here, and then I just did, like 2 months after I graduated, so end of June, I moved. I just put everything in a U-Haul and moved. A lot of stuff I didn't need. Like that's a nice tip. When you move, you don't need like your lamp. You'll get a new one. You don't need a fucking $2 lamp.
You can buy one on Craigslist.
Yeah, everything that was in that U-Haul was such a, like, I just drove it across country for no reason.
Okay, so now, I mean, a lot of people getting out of acting school in different places all over over the country would, like, that's kind of a big question for them. Well, should I move to LA? Should I move to New York? Like, what, is it better for me to kind of hone my craft more at home? Do you have any opinions or feelings about that?
I mean, I guess it probably, I think obviously if you are looking to do like theater and Broadway, and that's New York,
Right.
But they have a ton of filming there too, I realize. And they probably have a bigger stand-up scene.
Right.
They have a more, I don't know, they may have a more comedian-friendly stand-up scene, maybe. Because here it's like all showcases, right?
Right.
So you can get stage time, but it's like 5 or 7 minutes. Like, when you're booking the Improv, it's
Right.
like it was hard to build past like 7 minutes of material because that's all you ever got. And you were so busy trying to make that good.
Right.
You didn't have time to build 15.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're interested in actually like just doing stand-up and being, like, if your goal is to be the best stand-up comedian possible, like, New York is probably a better place to end up at.
I think so.
Yeah, just because there's...
I mean, I don't know the scene very well, obviously,
Right.
not having lived there, but...
Well, I mean, because I came out here after doing a year in Boston, and I was still doing stand-up at that time, and it was just going to a ton of open mics where you're sitting in front of 6 other comedians who aren't the most supportive people in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most frustrating thing. It was hard to tell whether any of my material was working because I was never performing in front of an actual audience.
Yeah.
So I think in New York, you might have a better chance of performing in front of actual people.
Yeah, and here it's usually like all industry
and yeah,
or tourists.
Or,
Yeah.
So you come out to LA. How do you decide where you're going to live?
I stayed with my dad for like 8 months, which was weird because I was 21, so I like moved back in with my dad. But in Orange County, just because I just left college, so I didn't have any time to save money.
Right. Yeah.
So the plan was live with him for a few months, wait tables, get as much money as I can, and then move when I have like enough money for an apartment, like a deposit.
Right.
And so I was probably there like 8 months, and then I moved up here. And at the time I was coming up, I was taking like an acting class, which it just made me feel productive or whatever.
Which is important, though.
No, it is, yeah.
Where did you? Was there any thought process put into like what acting class I'm going to take, or was it like, oh,
not my first one? I just kind of found one, but then when I got up here, when I did move up here and started waiting tables and meeting more people trying to do the same stuff, and like I started doing open mics, and then I started looking for like an acting class that. I went to this guy, Brian Reese, who I don't know if he still teaches. I feel like he probably does. He had like a huge, kind of a school, but it was, and everyone, I found like a lot of people suggesting something. So a lot of asking around definitely is a good idea.
So you started off in OC, you follow the plan. You wait tables down there, save up enough money, and then go to a place up here, and then you get a bartending or waitressing gig? Or?
Yeah, waitressing.
Okay. And then at that point, you start doing... So it took you 8 months to kind of get from OC to LA?
Yeah.
And then at that point, you've already done this class, but you start doing stand-up for the first time.
Yeah, and probably like a year after that.
Got it.
Just before I finally did.
And how, take me back to that process of, writing your first... Had you been writing all these years and you kind of had a little bit of stuff?
I had some, but then when I finally... I actually met Chelsea Handler.
Okay.
At a sketch comedy class, an improv class that we were both taking here in the Valley called I forget, but it was, I forget. It was, but I was like, we were both really bad at it. Like, we're just not, I think people think improv and comedy sometimes is the same thing, like stand up and
Right.
improv, but it's so different.
So you're like 23 or 24?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were taking the same class, and then we just like became instant friends. I was like, I like happy hour. She was like, me too. And then, so we became friends, and I found out like, oh, she wanted to do stand up too.
So you had a buddy then?
Yeah, so kind of had someone. She did it first at the Comedy Store, I think. She did that like wait in line,
Right. The Monday night thing.
and maybe like a month or so later, she had like gotten to be friends with someone who ran a show at the Ice House, which is a comedy club in Pasadena, and they have like this little annex room
Right.
where they used to let people. They do what they call bringer shows. For those of you who don't know, which is
I think
where,
they still do them.
yeah, where you would have to like. They would book you if you brought a bunch of people. So basically, it's how they made money.
Yeah.
So she basically ended up with like she was doing that show, and then I met the same guy, and he was like, "Yeah, you can do this show if you bring friends." So I brought like 20 friends, of course, and killed it because I had 20 friends in the audience. Yeah.
Right. And so was that your first time, or that?
Yeah, that was my first time. But I had been writing, and then I started writing kind of specifically more about like that time in my life.
Right.
So I was writing, I guess, new stuff to me, obviously, not like I didn't dig out like the crap that I wrote when I was in like college. Instead, I did like, okay, well, I moved to LA and blah blah blah. And so
Do you remember? Did you do like a 5-minute set your first set?
I think it was 5 minutes. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, it was like I did well, and I remember like the video, like I had the VHS of it. Afterwards, they give you the tape.
Yeah.
And I remember like playing it for friends when I'd get drunk and be like, look, I'm funny. Like how obnoxious. I can't even imagine how bad it would be to watch it now.
I'm laughing because I did the same exact thing at the same exact location at the Ice House. I got the VHS too.
You get a good tape out of it.
And I brought it back to my friends in college and was like, look, and they were like supportive. I think they were all really high, so they just thought it was funny anyway.
Well, and it's because like you're on like a professional club stage kind of,
Yeah.
and it looks all professional, and you have people laughing. You're like, look, I'm amazing.
I mean, I think it's but having that's nice to have that first experience too, where it goes well.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you're just like, were you like, all right, I'm in. I love stand up.
Yeah, I was, and I was doing like open mics a bunch, and then I'd say like there was this little phase where like, I got a commercial agent and like booked a commercial, and then
how'd you get the commercial agent?
I did. I mean, I don't know if it still works, but for me, it worked just to do like those mass submissions.
Got it.
To like there was this Samuel French bookstore where you would go and it would like give you all the labels to all the agencies, and you would shove your headshot in there and your resume, which mine had nothing on it except for college.
We'll
and
insert Sarah's first headshot here.
Oh my god, it's so bad. I'll find it. I look a little bit manly in it. I have like a really short haircut, but I don't know. I just like did the thing where you did a mass mailing, and luckily. Commercial agents, I think, still do like that. They respond to that kind of stuff more than
right, and it's more of kind of a numbers game for them too, right?
Yeah,
where they're like looking for particular looks. It's not like, hey, is this the most trained best actor in the world? It's more like, oh, this person has a particular look.
Yeah, they're just sort of throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing who gets a job. Right, yeah.
Cool. So. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So you got a commercial at that point?
Yeah, I got a couple. I was like booking a couple commercials. I was waitressing. I mean, nothing. I think people think like commercials change your life, but back then, but they certainly didn't. I mean, some of them you can make really good money, and some not. But whatever. It was like nice to do something. It just felt like. But there was like a phase where I guess it was at the Improv, and they were doing this. Comedy Central was doing this like showcase, and it was for. People like the winners would be on Premium Blend, which was a showcase of comics that's not on anymore. And I was there, I guess. I'm trying to remember where it was, but I showcased, and this woman from Fox saw me, and another guy that worked for Fox. They saw me, and they sort of took a liking to me. So they kind of they sort of started sniffing around, and like they were interested in my comedy, and then they.
How did they discover you?
They were at the Improv.
How did you break into the Improv? How were you able to get your first kind of gigs there?
I don't know. Was it you?
Was it?
I don't know. I don't really remember, to be honest, how I got my first. I think it was through. Maybe they saw me somewhere else. I'm trying to, because there was this thing that Comedy Central did. You'd think I would remember this, but.
What year did you do Premium Blood?
Like 98.
That was way before me, so no. Yeah.
No, it wasn't you then.
Yeah.
And maybe it was 97. I don't know. But either way, it was before
And
you.
premium blend was like, was basically, it's not the half hour where you're doing a half hour, but you're doing like 6 or 7 minutes, and that's a big fucking deal to get.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and it was but I'm trying to remember because I did a showcase somehow with Comedy Central. Maybe it was, I think I just had to submit. I think it was another thing where you just submitted.
And at that point, you'd been doing stand up for how long? So if it's 97, 98.
I mean, a few years, yeah, and like built a few minutes here and there. You know, like nothing.
Right.
What you build, you know, I think people think all of a sudden you have like an hour after 4 years, but you don't. You have like 10 minutes, especially around here, you know, because you don't.
So was it like you were a regular at the Improv at that point, or was it just kind of like you were? Because they also have like book showcases where outside bookers are booking it. So maybe you would.
I ended up getting booked on a showcase there from outside thing, but I think I'm trying to remember the Comedy Central thing. Sorry, it's confusing, but whatever. Somehow I got in front of Comedy Central and they put me on this thing, and then I guess I got to the Improv, and that's where this woman from Fox saw me.
Got it.
And she liked me, and then they kind of started having meetings with them, and like I thought like things were happening, and then I got an agent out of that, like a big agent at why can't I think of the name of it?
Gersh.
It was Gersh, yeah.
Nailed it.
I was so excited, and they put me on a showcase for Montreal, which is the big comedy festival, and it used to be even bigger than it is now. I think
out of it you could get a development deal that they would give you a couple $100,000.
And now it's more like people go to see like the big comedians already, or they're still up and coming, but it doesn't get the same, I don't think. But I mean, still a great festival, but I don't think it has.
There's not the same amount of deals coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
So they put me in front of the Montreal Comedy Festival when Drew Carey was doing his Wednesday nights at the Improv.
Which was the big
deal. It was like he would headline the Improv on Wednesday nights.
And he would he was basically doing it with Ryan Stiles and everyone from Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
So they would do stand up, and then they would have the big Whose Line Is It Anyway cast doing, and for those of you who don't know what Whose Line Is It Anyway, Google it.
Yeah. Google it. I'm too young. So they put me up to do a 15-minute set, which I didn't know about. At this time, I had like 10 solid minutes. They didn't tell me it was 15 minutes. They just kind of were like, oh, she does stand up. Put her up in front of Montreal for this like big part, you know, this big thing to do there. And they put me up right before Drew Carey's show. So there's an entire audience of people wanting to see Drew Carey and this whole big thing. And up fucking comes me with a dick joke, you know. And it was awful. Like, I completely bombed. People just stared at me. It was the first time that had happened. Like, I'd been used to doing pretty well, and like I didn't know how to finesse a crowd when it didn't go well at that time. Right. So I completely ate shit, and I got off stage in 10 minutes because that's all I had.
Right.
And the host wasn't even in the room because he thought I was doing 15 minutes. And I didn't know that either, so I just left the stage, and I left it completely empty, and then I went in the bathroom and I cried. It was awful. I wish I could find out who hosted that night so I could be like, I'm so sorry that I did that to you. It was awful.
And so you're only a couple years in at this point, too. Yeah. So you'd gotten, you know, kind of a
My timeline is really bad. So I probably started doing stand-up in like 95, and this was, I moved here in 1996.
Okay.
So I'm fucking everything up. Because I went to college in 92 to 96. I'm getting old. And so I probably just started doing stand-up around 97 when I moved up here from Orange County. And then, so whatever, 98, 99, this is
in the first couple of years.
Yeah, this is in the first couple of years.
And so, I mean, at that point, like, getting that kind of...
I did Premium Blood in 2000.
Hey. All right, but it was in the first couple of years. I mean, so that must have been exciting for you on the one hand, because you're like, holy shit, like, I'm getting all of this buzz. I haven't been doing it for that long. Or, like, because I remember when I did stand-up, and I stopped doing it because for a number of reasons, but, like, I was like, I'm going to give myself, like, 3 years, and if I'm not like huge, like I'm out. And it's just like, you know, I was really impatient at that time, and I'm just curious, like, what was your kind of view on it? Did you think it was going to happen that quickly for you? Were you surprised? Were you like, oh, I totally deserve this? And like, I
was surprised, but I thought like, okay, I've been working hard, and but I wasn't. There's John. Sorry everybody about the buzzing. Hi John.
Hi John.
So I was. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like, I knew that I'd been working hard, so it felt like, but I didn't really know the process of it anyway. So
Right.
I just was sort of, I mean, ignorance is bliss. Like, I was just stumbling through it, literally. I was just like, I don't know, this is okay. So I've been doing showcases, and I've been, you know, like, at that time, I felt like the most productive thing you could do, you know, during the day was, like, send your headshots to people or invite people, agents out to see you if you were doing
Right.
a shitty stand-up set somewhere.
So
like,
you were hustling.
I was
Yeah.
trying,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I was excited, but I don't think I knew really. I definitely didn't know, and I wasn't a good enough stand-up to be put in the position I was in.
And I think that's kind of a really interesting, important point too, because listening to a lot of stand-up interviews and people that do stand-up, it's like you don't really know who you are until you've been doing stand-up for 5 years, 10 years. You know, people
Yeah.
have different numbers and stuff, but it's like you're really finding your voice in those first couple of years. And so, I'm interested in how did you recover from that, that showcase when?
Still haven't. I mean, that one took a while. I have to admit. I was down after that because I went in the bathroom and cried, and then I made my agent, like, I didn't look for him in the lobby. I waited until everyone was gone before I came out, and then he emailed me the next day, and he was like, "So that didn't go great, but whatever." Like, they're more used to that stuff than I was. Too young and too new to it to understand, like. That to me, I was like, so that's all.
My
I
career's
suck.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
terrible. And
Yeah.
but had I been, I wish I'd have known. If I had known better at the time, I would have said, don't put me up on a Wednesday night at the Improv before Drew Carey. I'm not ready for it.
Right.
But you don't know. You're just like, oh, you guys think I'm ready? Cool.
Yeah.
And they don't know. They're basing it off of like, oh, we've heard some heat about you. We think you're funny. So
Right.
let's just get you to Montreal. And you're like, oh, I don't think I'm.
Yeah.
You know. I mean,
Yeah.
the cool thing is. Whatever, in 2013 or whatever, like 13 years later, I went to Montreal as one of the 10 comics to watch on, you know, that Variety puts out this thing every year. And so, you know, you eventually things.
It comes full circle.
Yeah, and like that, the year before that, 2012, when my first book came out, I sold out the Improv for 2 shows on a Friday night, and I was like, okay, like.
I can let that go now.
Yeah, I can let it go. It took that long, no, it took 12 years, definitely.
So I think that's like a really good point is like, you know, people getting opportunity. Sometimes when I think like people can get jealous of other people getting opportunities, like that old person's only been doing it for 3 years, and it's like that. Sometimes that works out great, but other times, you know, it's like it's not always. If you're not ready for it, if you're not in the position where you've paid your dues, and it's not just paying your dues, but you've spent enough time mastering your craft.
Yeah,
it can backfire sometimes.
And some people are probably better at it within the first 2 years.
Right.
I mean, and I think I was doing well, obviously, because I got the attention that I got. But you know, I was still, you know, it wasn't great. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. I certainly wasn't. You know, it was like I was just learning. So in the first few years or whatever, it took me a lot longer, definitely, to get to where, like, I know now, like, I'm really confident that I'm a really good stand-up, and that stuff doesn't enter my mind anymore, which is great. But at the time, when people are paying attention to you, like, if you can be aware enough to know what you're ready for, that's awesome. I also get why sometimes you just kind of have to go with when people are excited about you. You have to do that too.
Give it a shot, yeah. See,
you know, so there's a balance, maybe.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the recovery just knowing that if you feel like you're ready, go for it. But if it doesn't work out in the end, like, it doesn't mean it's the end of your career. You know, it's like
by no means.
Yeah, and so continuing on from that point, you still had your agent. I mean, they weren't like, oh gosh, we're done.
No, but a couple months later, they dropped me. They sent me on like one audition, and then the agent, I still remember his name, but I won't say it. Not the comedian agent, but the guy who was like the theatrical agent at the time, who I'll fucking never forget this guy's name. He wrote me like kind of a nasty email, and he was like, it's just too hard to get people to see you because you don't have any credits. And I was like, that's not my problem. You're the agency. You know, like, you're the one that came to me and said, let's represent you. Right. So after trying to get me like 1 or 2 auditions, that's what he said. And then I think they sent me on 1 audition for the X-Files, and it didn't go well, and then they dropped me. And I was like, well, so
So you had, at that point you had no credits. Now, had you done
This is a
Premium
depressing
Blend?
story.
No, it's
Get
good
the
though. This
get
is
the vodka.
it has a happy ending. That's the
It
point.
does have a really good ending.
What? So like, wait, I'm a little bit confused. Had you already done Premium Blend before the Montreal showcase or no? Or whatever.
Yeah,
But like
somewhere around
shortly,
the same
it was
time.
around the same time. And so
Oh,
tell me,
I still got Premium Blend even though I ate shit at the Improv. Yes.
okay, so you
Yeah.
still, and tell me about that experience. I mean, so this is like,
That was fun.
It's a huge,
Yeah.
you know, to be your first TV set.
Yeah. Oh God, I wish I could go back and someone fix my hair for that because I recently saw someone put it on like a website or something, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing promoting my 2000 performance of Premium Blend? I had like white hair that grew upwards. Oh, it was awful.
You're like, you know, I have a comedy special.
Yeah,
Right?
it was so fun. It was really cool, and Harland Williams hosted it. So what we used to do on that show is they had like a more well-known comedian host, and then there would be like 5 lesser or not at all known comics do their 6 or 7 minutes, and it went really well. And that was like at a big theater in Westwood, and so yeah, I guess that was after that. So that's why I felt like okay, everything's not terrible.
So you still have this other TV set to look forward to.
Yeah.
You do well on Premium Blend.
Yeah, I did well. I mean, as well as you can, I mean, it was super fun, and I thought, and Harlan Williams hosted it, which was cool because I liked him a lot at the time. And then, like, cut to 2013, I did a movie where I played his wife, so
Right.
that was kind of cool. And then I reminded him that we did Premium Blend together, and he didn't remember.
I love him. He's one of the goofiest, funniest.
He's so funny.
So you do Premium Blend, and like, all right. So I'm putting myself in your shoes at that point. I'm like, all right, well, that one Montreal thing didn't go well, but I just did my TV set, and I'm like, in my mind, I'd be like, all right, I'm ready for startup now. Like,
Yeah.
all right, like, when did the TV roles? When's my sitcom coming? Were you kind of thinking that way, or was it more like
You were
were just excited going along?
I was just excited, yeah. I don't think I've ever, maybe I have like I don't know if it's pessimistic, but I'm always like, I kind of learned quickly that like, you'll get something and then there could just be dead silence for a long time. So just enjoy the like thing that you get and then.
It's kind of the ups and
Oh, yeah,
downs
big
of
time.
entertainment. So expect like, you're going to have these real high highs and these low lows.
Yeah.
And they usually happen right next to each
Don't
other.
quit your fucking day job.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Or night job, whatever it is. Like, I remember even when, like, not long, I don't know, a little while after that, I kind of got back into, I had a new agent and, this is a couple years after that probably. And I ended up getting on this hidden camera show.
Right. So, wait, before we do that, so that couple years in that period right there,
You're real tough on timelines, and I'm not good at them.
It's okay, but just in general, you're waitressing.
Waitressing, I was bartending then. I finally got moved up to bartender, mostly because I was a really bitchy waitress, and they were like, "You belong behind the bar where people can be mean." So still waiting tables, still bartending.
Auditioning. I mean, because I kind of have gone back through some of your. You ended up getting some credits here. Like
I got a couple credits.
Tahiti.
Tahiti was a film that my friend, I can't believe is that still on IMDb?
Yeah, it is.
My friend, friend of mine did it. It was actually ended up pretty good. They did like a legitimate production of it, but I'm impressed that it's even on IMDb. That's pretty
Strong
cool.
Medicine?
Strong Medicine was a show on Lifetime that I thought was a really big deal that I booked it, and that turns out pretty much everybody has a credit for Strong Medicine. It was like a was it Rosario Dawson?
I don't know, I never saw it.
Somebody like that starred in it, meaning somebody like who who works a lot, but she had like the starring role as like the lead doctor. I think it was on Lifetime.
And so this is your new agent who's hooking up these
Yes,
gigs? Okay,
yes. This was a guy who was like 80 years old and like had like 8 clients.
And how did
His name was Sid.
How did he find you? Or were you still submitting at
I
that
think
point?
I submitted to him, yeah.
Okay.
His name was Sid, and he was actually really sweet, and it was kind of where I belonged, honestly. He owned a smaller agency.
Right.
I didn't belong at fucking Gersh yet.
Right.
Where, I'm a small name in like such a big pond.
Right.
And if you don't do well, they just ditch you.
Right.
So I submitted myself, I think, to this guy, Sid Levine.
And who hooked it up?
He hooked it up. He knew all the he was, older. He had been around a long time. He had his certain connections. I swear to God, everyone, I always think Strong Medicine. I was like, I'm on Strong Medicine. I had 2 lines. And I really think everybody I've ever talked to since then is like, oh, I did an episode of Strong Medicine. They're probably also with Sid.
But I think what the point that you made earlier is really important too, because this is something that I experienced when I worked at a management company. Is there's a client there named Michael Loftus who's a great comedian, very funny stand-up, who would always call up and be like, hey, it's client 100, which is basically like, the idea of being like, you'd rather be one of the top clients with a smaller manager or agent than like at the bottom of a manager or agent's list because their main focus is going to be on all of their big clients that are making them the most money. And so if you do have an opportunity to be at kind of like a bigger agency, but you're a smaller client, you want to make sure you're super nice to the assistants and to the kind of like the junior agents, because those are the people that will kind of push your career forward.
Yeah, because when they all, at the end of the day, they're all just trying to make money too off of you, right? So if you have like a smaller agency who's got a smaller list of clients that aren't as well known, he's going to be pushing you all the time. And at that time, that's all you need is you just need someone to get you a few credits. Right. So you're not going to get the fucking lead in a Steven Spielberg movie. Right. You're going to get Strong Medicine.
And was that your first kind of big credit that you were really excited?
Yeah, I was very excited.
And then talk about full circle. Your mom was a big soap fan.
Yeah.
And then you get Days of Our Lives.
Yes, Sid also knew the casting director for Days of Our Lives really well, and he submitted me a couple times, and she cast me twice. She cast me once as a nurse.
Oh, okay. Your IMDb says maid, but
maid. Was it a maid?
It said maid.
Oh, I can't believe I played a maid. And then the other time was as a bigger role, as the wife of a guy who I don't know. He was like a regular at the time, but not. And I guess his wife just showed up once because I only got to do one episode. But I came in and like threw a jacket at him and called him names and then left.
I hope you have that on video.
I have it on video somewhere. I do. I have like the tape of it, and it was really funny because like my old roommates in college used to watch Days of Our Lives, and so I didn't watch Days of Our Lives. I watched the ABC ones, but I was like, oh my god, I know all their faces. Right. And then I was nervous because I was like, this is a soap opera. Like, I don't know how to act on a soap opera except in my bathroom. Like this is, like, I don't know how to do that. So, it was really funny because they all said such dramatic things, as you would expect. Right. And then when the camera cut off, I remember a bunch of them just like laughing at themselves. And I was like, oh, you guys are in on they're having fun. That it's ridiculous. Yeah, that it's fun and like way over the top.
And they're just churning and burning, right? It's happening so fast, right? I mean, are you doing multiple takes?
When I threw the jacket, he like missed it or something and dropped it, and they were like, "Cool, we're good with that take." And I was like, "Really? We don't even get to do that one more time where he can catch the jacket?" They were like, "Nope, see ya." I believe her name was Maura.
Oh yeah, you got it. You got that right, Maura. Yeah, you nailed that one. I thought, when I saw 2 episodes, I was like, did the maid turn into Maura? Or
no, I had 2 different. I think they were like, no one's gonna remember that you were the maid, so it's fine. You can be Maura too.
Amazing. All right, so you're getting some credits.
Yeah. And
you're continuing doing stand up after Premium Blend.
Yeah, I was doing stand up. It did take me a little bit after like the Montreal thing to go to like clubs again, but I got back into it. I mean, you just have to shake it off eventually. But and I was doing, and I booked a few commercials. I was getting a little bit of that out there, which was just nice because you're so broke, trying to do anything that any sort of and I would get like health insurance out of it. So that made a big deal.
So you're making money, but you still have your job bartending, and like at that point you've been out here for 6 years. Did you ever think about doing the road for stand up or no?
I did. I went a little bit here and there with people, like if I met a comic or someone would take me, or back like when I met that woman from Fox that was doing a lot of stuff with me. She worked a lot with Doug Stanhope, and he would. I would do shows like opening for him.
That's great.
At places that were like not on the road as much, more like local and stuff. But I mean, he obviously had a great crowd because he was a bigger name. So it was a chance to get to go, and he would let me do more time and stuff. So they would kind of pair us together for these like Fox showcases sometimes too. And I don't really know what happened with that. That just faded away eventually.
It's funny to me to think about Doug doing like Fox showcases, but
I know. This woman, her name was Ann Maney. She was like obsessed with him, as she should have been, because he was so funny. Right. And I think they tried so hard to get him any kind of, but he just isn't TV friendly.
You can't just put Doug in a box, you know.
Yeah, you can't you can't censor him. So for Fox, it was probably never going to work.
So and like. You have your kind of your crew of stand-up friends, you're doing stand-up, and like, so how long, and you're just hustling this whole time, right?
Yeah, I was, then I was bartending a lot. The first person that I met after I came out here actually was Chris Frangiola, who was a comedian.
Right.
That Jesse knows that I worked on
From
Chelsea
Chelsea
lately
Lately
with.
with-
Yeah,
yeah.
we waited tables together at Mirabelle, and so he and for years he and I were buddies too. So
Right.
he was like a comedian friend too, which was kind of cool. You have
Your crew. And at any point, like during this time, was it like, man, am I going to get my big break? Are you getting frustrated at all?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Miserable. Definitely a lot of times. Especially when I got to, close, longer and longer into it. And I was saying I started working on that hidden camera show.
Right. Yeah. So, Scare Tactics.
Which was probably 2001 or?
Yeah,
what is
2003.
it?
2003.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It all seems like, because I keep forgetting it's 2017. It
Yeah.
seems like, I'm like, no, that was longer ago, but that was
Right.
14 years ago.
Still, yeah.
So I was doing that show a lot, and it was cool because I was regular. They would have me on it all the time.
Right.
But they don't pay you like a series regular, so you get $500 every time you do it, right? So
Right.
you can't quit your job. And people would watch that show.
And recognize you?
Yeah, and they'd come in to where I was bartending at Formosa, and they'd be like, why do you work here if you're on Scare Tactics? I'm like, because they paid me $500 last month.
Yeah.
It's great, but you can't, and I also, again, you never know. I didn't know when they were going to call. It's not like I had a contract with them.
Right.
So everything to me has always been don't let go of the steady thing that you have. I had a really cool boss who knew what I wanted to do, and if I needed to get my shift covered last minute, he didn't care.
Right.
He was fine as long as it was covered.
You're good.
And I could go shoot Scare Tactics,
And
which was a crazy show, but fun.
And that was kind of I think that was generally around the time that I met you when I started booking the Improv. And I feel like I saw you on A Pretty Funny Woman or something like that. And I was like, holy
Yes,
shit,
that's right. Yeah.
you're hilarious. And then I don't know, and then I remember, I think in 2006 or 7 was when we did that MySpace contest, and I definitely was pushing for you to get some love on that.
Yeah, that contest was a big. It was a big deal. It was another moment of okay, here we go.
Right. So basically, I produced when I was booking the Improv, I produced a competition called the MySpace Stand Up or Sit Down Comedy Competition. For those of you who don't know what MySpace is, Google it. And it was basically a big competition where comedians submitted their tape via MySpace, and then people voted online to see who the finalists would be, and then the finalists went to the Vegas Comedy Festival, which was an HBO event in Las Vegas, and the top 5 performers kind of performed. George Lopez hosted it, and
they aired on TBS,
yeah,
which
they
was
aired
a
on
huge
TBS,
deal.
which was super cool.
Yeah.
And Colonna killed it.
Yeah, I think, was it Jen Kober that won the whole thing?
No, I mean she probably.
Oh, no, it was
Steve Byrne.
Steve
Yes.
Byrne, yeah.
It was Steve Byrne, Jordan Rubin, Eddie Ift, Jen Kober,
And me.
and you.
Yeah.
I was like, who's the last one?
Yeah. It was cool. It was really, it was fun because it was fans were voting, so then you're like, okay, I feel like I'm getting you guys were awesome about it, the Improv, everything was, it just was a cool time, and it was that going to Vegas and
That was a
everyone
fun shit, yeah.
treating you nicely.
Right, yeah.
And I got hooked up with, I made that's when I met actually my, still to this day, entertainment lawyer, who hasn't been that busy with me for a long time, but has always stuck by my side, so I love him. Jeff Cohen, who also played Chunk on Goonies, little known fact.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah.
And so he was the lawyer for, I don't remember if it was the Improv or Judy.
He was improv. He was a lawyer for Levity.
Yeah, for Levity Entertainment, who produced this whole thing. So he was guided me through all the contracts and all the stuff you had to do for this little thing, and he became a friend, and also later when I got on Last Comic Standing, he looked at the contract for me but didn't charge me anything. He was just always
a champion. And
really helpful. So I'm very excited to
Now, at that point, when you were doing the stand-up, sit-down competition, and were you still with your old agent or no? Or was that relationship at that point?
I don't remember who I was with at that point. I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I remember, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know who was representing
So then kind of out of that competition.
Someone that was doing a great job because I can't remember who it was.
So then that's 2006, 2007, and you're still hustling after that. I mean,
That's when I was at this woman named Soul, because I forgot she didn't just represent me for commercials, she also did theatrical, so she was
Got it.
taking care of me then. Okay, and she was awesome.
Awesome. All right. So then after the sit down stand up comedy competition, I can't. When did you do the last comic stand-up? I don't.
2008,
9. So that was in between.
Yeah.
That and Chelsea. Later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that experience for you? The last.
It was fun. I feel like I didn't really want to do Last Comic Standing because I think it's weird to compete comedians against each other because I think no matter what, it's like hopefully everyone's different, right?
Right.
So it's just so subjective, so it feels weird. But at the same time, I was like, the MySpace thing had gone really well, but then it was sort of like, again, it just sort of levels off when you're like, okay, well, now what?
Yeah.
And I think the MySpace thing helped me get on Last Comic Standing, and it was a year that people weren't living in a house together if they were finalists. It was just, so I thought, okay, well, I can't live in a house with people, but maybe I can just do this. And for me, actually, I think Amy Schumer was actually on it that year too. And I think I got the best case scenario out of it because I was a semifinalist.
Right. I
got good coverage because they liked me, or one of the producers at least did. And, they showed me in a good light. And then I got as a semifinalist, and I had a good set as a semifinalist.
Right.
And then I didn't get in the finals, but it was fine because I was like, I had a good set on NBC.
Right. And you had that tape, and people saw you, it was the exposure, it was all that.
Yeah, and then nothing happened. I mean, it helped. Like I got more stand-up gigs, and by that time, obviously, I'm still in all this time doing stand-up, as much as I can wherever I can.
Right.
And I had gone on the road some, but not. It's hard to go on the road when you also want to be here and make money.
Right.
Because you don't get paid anything as like a.
And so you're like 10 years into this business at that point.
Yeah.
And like at any point where you're just like, did you ever consider giving up?
Well, no, I didn't know if I considered it, but like when I turned 30 and I still was bartending, I was depressed. Right. I was like really fucking bummed. I was just like, this sucks. I know I've gotten work, but every time I get work, then nothing happens from it.
Right. And
I can't make a living off of like getting a $500 gig every now and then, or a bunch of people liking me on MySpace, or whatever. So, and then I remember like I kind of had a meltdown, and I told my mom that I was having a meltdown, which is weird. And then she wrote me a card and was like, basically like, if you tried to move home, I wouldn't let you. Like, this is what you're meant to do. Just don't give up.
Oh.
I know, and she's in Arkansas. Like, she was even still believed in me. So, and I still have that card. Yeah.
That's fucking
dope. She was, and so then I was like, oh shit, now my mom's gonna think I'm a loser if I move home. Like, I thought she thought I was a loser because I was still bartending, you know what I mean? But really, she was just like, no, just don't give up.
Was moving home?
So support is a big part of it.
Yeah. Was moving home a thought in your mind, or was it more just like, do I need to find a profession?
It was more about a profession. I was never going to move back to Arkansas, but I really like California.
Yeah.
No, I just started to wonder because you start to think like, it didn't last long, but it was just enough of a doubt that I was like, well, how long can I do this? How long can I open for someone for 20 minutes and get paid, $75 or whatever, and still bartend and hope that another festival sees me, or hope that another commercial or a bigger one or whatever, or hope that the days of our lives, a woman comes calling again.
So, 2008, and like, you were doing Scare-tastics. You were woman number 1, United States of Terror, 2009.
Oh yeah, I actually really, I get so many tweets now still from people that are watching United States of Terror like on, I guess, Netflix or iTunes or whatever it's on.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was fun. I got to play like a crazy person, and that was with Diablo Cody. That was her show.
Right.
But I didn't know her at the time. Right. And so then I ended up working with her husband and her like later, which was cool.
So your mom giving you that boost helped you keep your head in the game and just say, look, I'm going to keep on going for this and persevere. And then talk about...
And also lack of interest in doing anything else.
Right, you're just like...
I was also like, I also don't want to do anything else genuinely.
And I think that's a really important point too, is just like people who end up succeeding in this business and making a living, you really just have to be single-minded, and you just can't do anything else. Like, and in the end, it's not necessarily about being super rich, but it's like, look, I want to make a living, and I want to be doing this professionally, where I could be comfortable and making a living doing it. Yeah. And like be creative.
That's why when people are like, I think maybe I'll try it. I'm like, don't do it unless you really want to.
You're not going to make it unless obviously there's those exceptions where like
And it's super annoying when they do.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Tracy Morgan's one of those where it's like he did stand up like in the third time someone saw him and was like, you should be on television, and then gave him a television set, and like then the next year he was on Saturday Night Live, and it's just like, what? How does that happen?
Right.
But that's like the 0.0001% of the stories about people succeeding. And especially when you look at the landscape today in terms of like who the biggest comedians are, it's like Louis C.K. was in his 40s, Bill Burr is in his late 40s. Like most of these people are hitting it when they're in their 40s.
Yeah.
So tell us. So finally, like the big break, right? The
Chelsea was
lady.
definitely the big break.
And I think that's a really interesting story too, because it's like it's based on a relationship that you had for 17 years. It's like, So talk.
Like we were still really good friends. Obviously, when I remember when she showcased for E to do like the first version of her show. I went to the taping and I was so excited for her. And that was the first version, didn't have like comedians on it every night and stuff. Right. And the Chelsea Handler show. Chelsea Handler show. Yeah, it was more like they showed videos.
Right.
Like viral videos and stuff. Yeah. And that was really cool. I was really excited for her. And then they ended up coming up, I guess, with the concept of Chelsea Lately instead. And at the time, like she and I were around each other so much and did stand up together so much that I think a lot of people thought we were alike.
Right.
Like we thought we had similar humor. I totally disagree with that, but I can see, not in a bad way. I mean, it's flattering, but we didn't. Our material wasn't at all similar.
Right.
Because we both, I especially tell like really personal stories. There's no way.
It was just like kind of like if someone's looking at it from far away, they're like, oh, they're both single.
Both 30.
And drink. It's
both
like
drink.
drink.
Yeah, I was still like relying probably too heavily on like drinking jokes at that time even.
Which I always loved.
No, yeah, and I still love, like I don't regret it, but like, and then I hate when, like you have to, I mean you grow out of whatever phase you're in, and for me that was my phase in my 30s, right? Yeah. And 20s, and now. But so at the first year that she had that show, I wasn't on it, and I never asked her or anything, but she one time said to me like, oh, I think they think that we're too similar, so that's why they haven't asked you on the round table yet. I just don't want you to, you have your feelings hurt. And I was like, I don't expect you to put me on your show. Like, it's fine. And then eventually, like a year after the show was on, and they also had like bigger names then because they were trying to build the show. Right. And it wasn't 3 comics yet. It was like 1 comic, like a random, like a Scott Baio, and then like a Us Weekly person. It was so the comics were obviously a little bit more well known. And then I think she kind of stepped in and was like, I want 3 comics, and I know a lot of funny people. So she definitely gave me that opportunity to be on it, I'm sure. I mean, And
I think like an interesting part of your story right there too, which I admire and like, is a lot of people, if their friend got a TV show and wasn't like immediately, hey, will you be on it? Hey, will you write for it? Hey, would have been like, fuck that,
Right,
like,
yeah.
And like that happens a lot in this business where people, for whatever reason, like people have their reasons, and like, again, like relationships are really important, and like the fact that you handle that in a very chill way, and we're just like, I understand. Like a lot of times, like even though the person's a host, they're still beholden to like executives and other people.
Yeah, they don't. It's like when you get your own show, you don't all of a sudden get to like just call all the shots. Right. I mean, she did 8 years later or whatever.
When you're a star coming into it, you have more juice. But when you're like just
why Jews? Why did I have so many Jews?
Yes, you have more Jews when you're a star. You definitely have more Jews. You have your agent. You have your but yeah, I mean but I think that's something that like a lot of people make mistakes in blowing off relationships when it's like I think you got to put yourself in other people's shoes and have like a lot of empathy for others who might be getting success. It's like if you do tell them to go fuck themselves, that might be an opportunity that you blow.
Where something could happen. People did that to her.
Yeah.
And they never got to be on the show.
Right. So I mean, like, I think taking that in stride is a really important lesson. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but like.
No, it was cool. So she, they asked me to do the round table, and I was super excited. And I was probably even more nervous doing that than anything else because I also didn't want to let my friend down. Right. I didn't want to suck on her round table. Right. And I knew that if I did suck, I'd never be invited again because I knew now that's how the show kind of went. And luckily it went really well and I became a regular. And luckily all the other stigma of us, like we obviously, the cool thing about that round table is you definitely got to show your own personality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I was doing the round table for a year, still bartending. is they only paid you $300, which was plenty of money for the time you were there, but it's not
So now people are coming into
oh,
your
now
bar,
they're watching Chelsea
and
lately.
they're like, I saw you on Scare Tactics. I see you on Chelsea lately. What are you doing
I'm
serving
like,
me drinks?
yeah, one Jack and Coke, fucking ticket, like, and still
Shut the
tip me
fuck up.
because I'm not making that much money. And then a year after that was when they asked me to stick around after the show, and then they offered me a writing job. And that was, I was definitely doing well on the show. I was definitely getting a following from that, which was really cool. Which that show did so much for comics as far as getting a following and getting to go on the road and packing clubs that you wouldn't have packed on your own because they didn't know your name yet, and now you had the exposure, and they were coming to see you. You know.
And I think that's actually when I started working. I think right around when you got hired to write was right when they brought me on to do like the tour managing of the community.
Oh right, yeah. That and when you first came on, I was still doing like website blogs. Like I wasn't quite a writer on the show yet. Like it's almost like they found me a position, which was really weird.
Yeah.
But I think the best part about that is when they asked me to write, and I, of course was like, yeah. I went to my boss at Formosa, where I was still bartending, and I was like, hey, listen, I got a writing job on Chelsea lately, so I'm just gonna have to cut down to working weekends here. And he was like, no, you're going to quit. And I was like, no, I'm not going to quit, because what if that job goes away? Like, I need my weekends. It's like, I know how much money I make on weekends. And he was like, Sarah, you're going to have a 9 to 5 writing job, or 9 to 7 or whatever. And you're going to come here on the weekends. He's like, this is it. Like, cut the fucking cord. You got a full-time job.
That's awesome.
In the industry. And I was like, but can I keep my weekends? Like, I was so afraid to let go of like what I relied on. Like, the only thing that I knew that was steady.
And this is 2009 and 2010, so this is like 13 years after you had kind of come to LA. Yeah. It's the first full-time gig.
First full-time gig, yeah.
Happy ending, yeah.
Woo!
And I mean, like, and so obviously you write on Chelsea for the run of it and perform on there, or do all the shows.
We had After Lately, which was awesome. Like, that was sort of cool because I got to do like the acting aspect a little bit more.
Right.
Plus writing on it, we got to do sketches, and like it was just fun, and it was so good for stand-up. Like,
and it was such a great crew of people too. Like all the comedians who wrote and performed on it were just a fun family.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I was there. I was the warm up for the show, so I would just like get to come in for like 3 hours and be like, "What's up, everybody?" and then I'd peace out and leave. So I never got to see any behind the scenes drama.
Oh, so much better to leave.
And then, like, you get to write a book, like, based on, like, blowing up through Chelsea lately, and, like, and so tell me how that, like, opportunity kind of...
This guy emailed me, and he's still my book agent, and he was like, hey, I just find you really funny on the show. You really seem to have your own voice. I've seen your stand-up. Like, have you thought about writing a book? And so I was like, I have, but I never really thought anybody would read it. And he was like, well, kind of now's the time,
right.
So, and the thing about writing a book that if you're a writer and you've always wanted to write one, which I always had, you still have to, your ego comes into play and it goes, well, why would anybody care? I'm not famous. But I wasn't trying to write a book about being famous. I was just trying to write it like a short stories about growing up and moving out here, and the entertainment industry was like the background to it. It was more just about, it was called Life as I Blow It. So it was about like just figuring shit out, you know? And then I thought, well, I like to read, and I hadn't heard of most of the authors that I read, right? So I was like, okay, well, I can do this. And then that went really well. And then I got to do a second one, and by that one I felt like a better writer.
Before we go to the second one, New York Times bestseller,
number 5, debut.
I mean, like, so tell me about when you got. I mean, actually, I was there when you got that news. I remember at Chelsea lately, you came down and just like.
Chelsea actually came. It was really cool because she came into the room and told me before my agents got a hold of me. So she found out from her book agent, because her book agent was like a stalker of the Times, like of looking at bestsellers. So she came in and she was like, "You're number 5." Like, it was really cool to get to share that moment with like a friend that had been, in the same position for a long time. So that was really cool. And then I went like a book tour with that, and sold out clubs that wouldn't even book me before. So it was pretty fun.
I mean, and that's just like that's just like the redemption tour. That's when you're. I mean, and again, I'm sure when you went to the clubs, you were really nice to everyone. You weren't like, "Fuck you for not booking me before." Fuck you. Hey, asshole, remember when I called you?
Just in my head.
Just you keep mental notes, people. Don't say it out the mouth.
Yeah, you're super nice. You can see it inside.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then the second book is
the second book was by then I felt like I was a better writer, and I was really proud. I mean, I'm proud of both, but like the stories that I wrote, those were more about like, again, I would write about doing stand-up and stuff in certain stories, but as the background, like I'm not trying to sell it like I'm some famous comedian, come read my book. It's more, just stories about being in my 30s and being single and how I was like really happy with that because I was doing well professionally, and I liked my personal life to just be sort of nothing at that point.
Right.
And then I met my now husband by the end of the book, so I wrote that story in the book, and then now we're married. But
her husband is the
Seattle
world-renowned
Seahawks punter.
John Ryan.
Yes.
Of the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Check it out. You can get a big ring.
Touchdown slanger. Also not a bad QB at times.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like that. And Ross Matthews hooks you guys up as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, what a great story.
Yeah.
So buy the book.
My first one was called Life as I Boat, and the second one's called Has Anyone Seen My Pants?
Yeah.
I like dumb titles. But the interesting thing is like Chelsea lately ends, and there's a hard not to wonder like, oh, what's next, because that was your weekly exposure, and your I quit writing there a year before the show ended, but I was still on the show.
Right.
Every 2 weeks or whatever it was that we were regulars on. And I think you do think you're going to come off of that and someone's just going to be like, well, here's your next thing or whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't work like that either. I was
Stuff.
back on the road. I mean, the book came out after that, and my second book came out after that, and I did another tour with that, and that obviously, like, I've built that following, and that doesn't go anywhere, which is really cool. Like, the Chelsea Lately fans when they become your fans and start going to your shows, like, man, they're dedicated. They're really, really good. Like, it's a really, and it's nice, because they're literally just coming to see you at that point.
Right, yeah.
I wasn't, I pitched a show. I had sold a script of my first book to NBC. It didn't end up getting made, obviously, but it was a big deal just to sell it.
Huge deal, and that's one of those things where they buy a lot of pitches and a very small amount end up actually making their way onto the air. So it's like, again, it's these ups and downs of like, oh, I sold it, and then it's like, all right, well, I didn't pick it up, and it's like, so, and like, you're like, I think one of the most interesting things and one of the most exciting things that just happened recently is like you're acting. Like, even though you're incredibly successful stand-up, New York Times bestseller, touring, selling out clubs across the country, that doesn't, like, casting directors don't go, oh, just because she's a good stand-up, I want to give her great acting roles or great acting opportunities. And it seems like that's still something that you're really passionate about. Right?
Yeah, it is. And you have to sort of beat that down a little bit because they don't think of you that way, and your agents don't even think of you that way, even though they're supposed to. And like you, and then the opportunities now is to get in and read for people. It's even harder because so many huge stars do TV and smaller things. So,
and on the top end, and then I think on the bottom end, it's like, hey, if there's some Instagram star who's got 2 million followers, then they're getting a lot of attention as well.
Yeah.
So it's like there's fierce competition for these roles.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as easy anymore. So, it never was, but it just doesn't seem as easy to get in the door because you kind of think, well, I have enough credits and I feel like enough people know my name at this point. Why am I not getting more opportunities? So, so this year we'll cut to when I booked my first series regular on a pilot.
And part of that was, because we talked a little bit before the podcast, it's like, part of that was you making a conscious decision to say like, hey, I'm not going to go out on the road during pilot season. I'm going to stay in town. I want to be an actor. I want people to take me seriously with this stuff. And you've also been doing indie movies and stuff like that along the way, where it's like maybe you're not top billing, but no,
it's been good because it helps. It gets exposure, it gets good tape, people can see it, or my agents can submit it and look, she just did this, and they can actually see you act in something.
Right, and so it's just you're kind of starting not all the way at the bottom in terms of acting, but you're starting kind of to rebrand yourself as hey, you can take me seriously as an actor as well, not just as a stand-up. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's that's a whole new mountain that you had to climb, and so you stay home from the road and you go out on some auditions.
Yeah, because I found this catch of I'd go on the road and then I'd get an audition and then so I wouldn't be in town for it. But it's I needed the work to be on the road, and so I did for this pilot season, as they call the time that pilots are being cast between January and I don't know, I guess March. It seems like it's
Yeah.
never ending now.
Yeah,
but,
it's year round.
I just decided to stay in town and see what happened, and I got 2 auditions, and the second one I booked the series regular, and it just got picked up for Netflix for 13 episodes. So, yeah.
And that is called Insatiable. Right?
Insatiable, yeah.
Right. And so, but before it got picked up by Netflix, right? So it wasn't. It
It
wasn't
was
in
for
this.
the CW, and then the CW decided not to make it, and we were like, well, that's over. And then Netflix.
Down, and then Netflix.
Yeah.
Now you're on a Netflix show. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Which
So,
is badass, obviously.
so I
I mean,
guess. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's obviously to be. It's like CW, Netflix. No disrespect, CW, but.
No, I'm sorry. CW, like, they were awesome. I wasn't sure what they'd be like to work with because and they were so cool and they were super supportive of the show. I think they just thought it's a little dark, and
Right.
I think they thought it might not fit in with what they have. So they probably made the right decision in the sense that this will probably be well suited at Netflix.
Right.
But I mean, obviously CW started the train, so
Yeah, and I
thank
mean,
you. Like, they're awesome.
to kind of wrap it up, like, is there any advice that you have for people that are coming up or that in the middle of it, like maybe they're reaching 30 and aren't where they want to be, and like for riding those highs and those lows, like is there any kind of like?
I'd say, like, just don't put a timestamp on it, because I always did. I always thought, like, oh, by this time if I don't have this, or by this time. And then you kind of come to realize, honestly, that later in life, you're going to be better at everything anyway.
Right.
Not that I'm saying, if you get work at 30, like, good for you. Fuck you too, but good for you. But I kind of feel like every time that I thought that I was ready and then I was let down, I probably wasn't ready. I mean, that's an easy perspective to have now.
Right.
But if you can at least try to think that way at the time, it might help you through the tough times. And also, just when you get work, be thankful and know that it doesn't always mean the next big thing is around the corner. It just means the next job's coming, but you don't know when.
Don't quit your day job.
Don't quit your day job.
Well,
And don't quit trying. Like, don't quit hustling.
Thank you, Sarah. This
Thanks.
is awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
The bomb.
Bye.
Bye.
I was like, bye. Bye to you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to The Subplot. I am Jesse Shapiro. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. All you got to do is put in that /Jesse Shapiro, JESSESHAPIRO. If you enjoyed the podcast, please go rate and review it. It really helps us a lot. And tell your friends about it if you think they would enjoy it as well. Anyway, hope you have a great, great day. Thanks for tuning in. And every Thursday, more Subplot.
See, I never thought I'd get the chance to do some things I've already done. So in some ways, I've already won. And if the credits roll here, this would be a great flick. But please hold your applause, yo, I've only begun.